Dumelang bana ba dikgoshi le dikgoshigadi, ke ngwanyanela o rata ke modimo le mangelo ya kere. Welcome to the Kosinkosi podcast, a brand that stands for all things owning your power. In other words, we have conversations with individuals from different walks of life, understanding that how did you get to the point of owning your true power, and what did you do to get to that point of owning that power? Dumelang bana ba dikgoshi le dikgoshigadi, ke ngwanyanela o rata ke modimo le mangelo ya kere. Welcome to yet another episode of the Kosinkosi podcast, a brand that stands for all things owning your power. On this podcast, we are all about inclusivity, and that's why we open up conversations from different individuals who are from different walks of life to try and understand how did you get to your realization of your true power, and what did you do to get to that point of owning that power. We believe that confidence is something that comes from within you, and we also believe that clothing and fashion statements are a big part of that process. I'm your host, Horanile Seilani, and joining me in studio today is a marketing giant who is the head of marketing for personal banking at African Bank, Eloise Buzak. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. What a delight to be here. Aren't I blessed today?
You look so beautiful, draped in your beautiful uniform from African Bank, and so am I.
Guys, I can't even tell you the power of putting this clothing on, how magnificent I feel in it.
I was just telling everyone downstairs that if I were to see my personal banker walking to me in this outfit, I would put all of my money on the table, because it screams to me that I can trust you when you look like this.
It's really about really intentional strategic marketing and branding, about understanding if you're going to connect with people in financial services, you need to take yourself seriously. And it starts with taking your people seriously. And I think this clothing really demonstrates that we understand that our people are vital in the connection with our customers, and that when they look impeccable, when they look proudly African, that they are able to embrace that energy and ensure that that is the impression you create with customers and consumers, and creates an opportunity for a very different type of conversation.
I could have never put it that beautifully, and I really concur with that statement. For someone who doesn't understand what a marketer does in personal banking, please can you take me through what your job entails in that aspect?
I think a lot of people think marketing is about advertising, about getting people to know about products, and that advertising forms an important part of it. But really, marketing is about building connections, about utilizing different techniques and creating opportunities for individuals to look at something in a way that resonates with them. Yeah. And within personal banking, we're really looking at the solutions and the products that offer customers and consumers an opportunity to advance their lives. Is there something there that helps you live your life in a better way? And I think a lot of people are intimidated by financial services. The idea of banking and money is a very emotional one. Whether you have very little or you have a great deal, you often feel intimidated. So our job, and mine in particular, and my team, is to help people understand what we have to offer in a way that's approachable and engaging. And then they are at ease to see how that particular service or option will help them, will enable them to grow, enable them and their families to live much more productive, successful lives.
Yeah. You mentioned that finance is quite an intimidating sector for a lot of people, and especially coming from a marketing point of view. I'm not informed in the finance space. So what did you do? What did you study for you to be able to incorporate marketing, to put together marketing and finance in the same,
So
space?
I think what's interesting for me is my journey has been one with broad scope. I studied BA Communications, Marketing Communications, and I've worked across all the components of marketing. I think people perhaps don't understand that comprises of branding, PR, internal comms, and I've even worked in customer experience as a way to truly understand the best ways to connect with people.
Yeah.
And the foundation is always your customer, who they are, what really they need, what they are struggling with, or what is going to delight them. And you, from that point on, can find connections across any industry. Financial services is particularly challenging. It's highly regulated, what you may or may not say. But if you are able to understand the need of your customer, understand where they're at, from a language perspective, from a life challenge perspective, you can develop collateral, you can develop ways to speak to them that makes it accessible to them. So I think that while people may be intimidated by certain subjects like finance, you will find that if you start from a point of talking to people where they're at and what they need, whatever you sell, whatever you are trying to share with them, you will be able to share it much easier and much more successfully.
In the finance space as well. So the thing about finance for me, it's such an interesting sector that I look at it from a distance, and I've seen over the years that it has always been perceived as an industry that is male dominated. What has been the shift like for you, especially because you are in that space? What has been the shift like in terms of the landscape of that whole industry for you and your experience?
So I think that women today are no longer bound by that parameter of it's something that is male dominated. I always say I'm privileged to live at a time where I don't have to be constricted by those boundaries, and I have 2 daughters that I constantly say the same to, that it's your mindset that can constrict you. And so when you are looking at an industry, and particularly financial services, you must believe that what you bring is a totally different perspective. What many people have seen about finance in a male-dominated way is you engage in a male-dominated way. And yet the majority of households that are managed and have financial issues are run by women. They are the people that actually coordinate how families are successful. And taking that perspective and understanding you bring that insight into an industry is powerful. Yeah. It allows you to sit at tables that often are dominated by men and do what Michelle Obama does and says, really realize that a lot of them, they're not as bright as you think they are. And if you sit in that room and know that you bring value, even if you feel like you are faking it, you often discover that your perspective is a powerful and necessary one to help build, corporations and businesses flourish. They need that insight.
So I work for an organization that strives to include women, and that's why I asked you that question for the perspective of your industry. Now I'm going to ask you from an African bank perspective, because we are always pushing for female leadership and whatnot, and you are the head of the marketing for personal branding. But what's the overall look at African bank in terms of female leadership?
Very diverse, very strong female leadership. From our CEO, KGB, was very intentional about ensuring that women felt comfortable and welcomed within the African bank space. He follows a great woman leader, the first woman CEO of a bank, which was Basani Malaleke, and that tradition has not only continued but been entrenched. So you will see across from our executive team, all across senior management, there is a very equitable view of women versus men. Yeah. The understanding is women bring a really powerful energy into a workplace. Yeah. They provide an opportunity for diversity and growth. And so that is intentionally harnessed at African Bank in a way that really sets it up for what comes next, really fantastic things.
Yeah. So we live in a digital space now. AI is on the rise. Digitization is a hot topic, and especially for the banking industry, I've been watching that closely from also that perspective because I'm very intrigued by the changes that AI and the digital space brings into industries. And I think the financial sector is one of those industries that have been really affected by these. And every time I see a banker, a teller behind the desk, I'm always wondering, are you going to have this job in the next 5 years? How is African Bank handling that aspect of life? And what do you see the future like for African Bank considering digitization and AI and all of those things?
I think, it's an interesting question because we are growing and evolving with the industry. I can tell you from my perspective that as a data-led, customer-centric organization, you are always going to listen to where your customers are at. And we know that particularly the market we serve, people like people still. They need the reassurance, they need the comfort, they need the advice. How that then expands into a digital landscape, I think will be one where we test and learn. Always bearing in mind that for many of our customers, digital is an incredibly intimidating view. And helping them do the smaller things first, like get your statement on an app or having the ability to go and ask our bot instead of calling the call center is really founded on our ability to show them the value for themselves. But I know that in a world that is driven by digital, many people think, like in a lot of European countries, we are going to become this disconnected society where everyone will be digitally led. And I think in some aspects that may happen. But I think people, particularly in the country we live in, still love people. They still want advice from people. So there's a place for every component. There's a place for AI where it enhances how people engage, the value they get out of connection. But I think that in reality, there will always be a need for people to have a deeper, richer, more valuable conversation than you could with AI.
I agree with that statement. We usually say in our industry that people buy from people and that human interaction is always a differentiating factor to a certain level for you to fully engage with your customers. Now, I know we touched about this at the beginning in terms of the fashion because what I'm wearing now is actually uniform for African Bank. But where do you see the connection between banking, finance, and fashion?
So it's an interesting journey. We have just relaunched our logo, which was really an expression of how African Bank is becoming a fully fledged bank, how we've evolved, we've purchased additional partners like Ubank and Grindrod, and really we are on this massive journey as a challenger bank. And you always look for points of differentiation when you are doing these types of exercises. And our whole thought process around the uniform was we could have done something everybody does. You go to a big corporate and you get kind of standard look. But if you are truly going to live up to your payoff, which is audacity to believe, we had to be audacious. And so we wrote a brief that was really focused around having a uniform that was at its heart audacious, that expressed the spirit of being proudly African and South African, that it would be vibrant and create energy and talkability, and that at its heart it would make our people feel incredible, that they would get up every day and with intent and drive want to connect with our customers. And so that was the brief we put out into the universe. And sometimes magic happens. And that's really how we were able to connect with Nkosi Nkosi. And I have to tell the story because it is really powerful.
Please.
We were doing the process of vetting suppliers. We had seen 9 other designers, some really fabulous other South African designers. Kosi were the last designers to come into the room. And I will never forget where I was sitting when they came in. And not everyone had brought clothing, but nobody had brought as extensive clothing, actual tangible clothing, not just designs. And it really spoke to intent in the ability to really be audacious, but also to be very serious about this. And that's a really good match for African Bank. And they brought out the clothes and they pitched it. And I always knew in my gut it was the start of something magical. And internally, we called our project Project Magic. And I just knew it would be the most magical part of the whole rebrand would be the clothing, that we would enter a realm of fashionable banking, that we would be the brand that actually made fashion and the expression of our brand, these patterns come from our brand language, that would be something that would become part of the landscape of South Africa. And it would be powerful and exciting and rejuvenating, make you think differently about banking, eh?
Yeah, beautiful. I fully agree with what you're saying about Kosi being an audacious brand, which really was a perfect match for yours now. Also considering the rebrand now, you're going for more audacity. That's just the way to go, and I agree that this is a perfect match. What can we expect from African Bank in this rebrand, the new journey that you guys are walking on into?
So I think it's really about becoming more comfortable about being audacious. You will see we have redesigned our logo. We have just launched a new brand ad. Our new brand ambassador, Nomzamo Mbata, has been announced. And it says that in combination with those things and the way we have invested in our people, in the look that they have, in the way they are going to connect with customers, that if you didn't know us before,
now
you're going to know us now. If you didn't notice us before, there's no way you're going to miss us now.
Yes.
You are going to see us walking down the passages in the mall as we go to work. You will see us in the taxi ranks as we go home. And you will think this is a bank that is serious about being African, about creating opportunities, about being a bank that backs you. It really says, if we can back our people like this, we're going to back you in the same way.
So tell me about the founding story of this beautiful bank called African Bank.
Thank you for the question. It's really a special story for both African Bank and for South Africa. In 1964, the founders of African Bank, amongst them the late Richard Maponya and now recently late Dr. Sam Motsuenyane, really understood that due to the political situation in the country, Black South Africans were not given an institution that would really look after their needs, to allow them to grow economically. And so they made an application to the Reserve Bank to start a black bank. Now, you can imagine in 1964 what the response was. It was surprisingly, it was yes, but. Yes, but you can only operate in homelands. Yes, but you cannot recruit anybody from current banks, so no current knowledge. Yes, but you must have R1 million to start. And R1 million back in 1964 was absurd, right? They had put all these hurdles in front of these founders, and they just decided, well, no, we are not going to be stopped by this particular feedback. We're going to do something amazing. We're going to start a bank that is for the people, by the people, serving the people. And it started off in a meeting in Garankuwa. It started at a meeting in Soweto where the community was asked to help raise money. And in the first evening, they raised 75 rand, which was a fortune, thinking about what people's wages were.
Yeah.
They had the audacity to start a bank with 75 rand. Took them 11 years to raise the money, and eventually international funding allowed for the establishment of African Bank. And it was founded on the principle of serving the needs of all South Africans. And it's a heritage and a legacy that we are really ensuring we go back to. That this is the bank that really works for all South Africans.
I had no idea it took them that long.
Well, I think in many ways it is the story of a struggle that is demonstrated across many families, many organizations. They did not want these men to succeed. But you will know from both the legacy of Dr. Sam Motsenyane and Richard Maponya, they did not listen to the naysayers. They embraced their power. They harnessed the power of the collective, of communities, and did things that an apartheid government didn't want them to be able to do. And we are very respectful of that sacrifice and that vision. And we are constantly reminded of that in how we even develop our thinking of how we do our solutions for customers.
Yes.
This is a place that everyone must feel welcome, that you will find something that will be beneficial, product or service that will really advance your life.
Yeah.
Because that's the true intent of African Bank.
I'm very excited for this brand, and I really think it deserves all the success that is coming for it in the future, because definitely it's headed for success, given all the value propositions that you guys have put yourself in. Just out of interest, how many countries are you guys operating in now as an African bank?
It's a very interesting conversation. We get that a lot because we're African Bank.
Yeah.
We are at this moment a South African entity.
Yeah.
We do, in the purchase of Ubank, we do have customers that obviously are from our neighboring countries. And as we grow and evolve, we are really focusing on building solutions that support them, despite the country they may work in and then live in. And over time, as we evolve and grow, I am certain that that may change. But at the moment, we are a South African bank, proudly African.
I can assure you that you're moving in that direction, definitely, because the African market, I usually say that the African market is so untapped, and there's so many opportunities that are on the rise for Africans in general. And I think you guys have positioned yourself in the right way, and there's only upwards from here.
I think what we also are really conscious of, that as South Africans, we often don't see ourselves as Africans. And in developing this uniform, we don't call it uniform, we call it African Bank Collection, because it's a collection. No, everybody can choose what looks good on them, so they'll look unified, not uniform. But the inspiration for the collection from right at the beginning was taking that magic of Africa and South Africa and combining it. So that we embrace being African, that we embrace that spirit of creativity and community, and really reflect that back in both the clothing and the attitude and the solutions we build. We build for communities, which is a really strong African trait.
So what's the connection between oranges and African Bank?
So Dr. Sam Motsenyane, at his heart and at his profession, was a farmer.
Oh.
He studied agriculture and has a deep and abiding love for farming right up till his death. And as part of raising funds for African Bank, he planted an orange orchard.
Oh, no.
As a means for the community to raise funds for the development and establishment of African Bank. And our logo is a seed.
Oh, that is
so
beautiful.
There's a deep connection between agriculture, a seed, and in particular oranges for African Bank.
That is such a beautiful story. Now I feel really good in this clothes, and I did say when I was putting it on, I was gonna ask Kosi, like, can I take this outfit home? And then I remembered, no, it's actually the uniform or the collection at African Bank. How can I get something like this for myself?
So once we started this work of doing this unified collection for our people, we realized very quickly that we couldn't keep this magic to ourselves, that there was going to be a demand from customers and consumers to engage with African Bank and the Nkosi brand in a very different way and really want to connect with us through fashion. And so we have really worked very hard. And I say we, meaning mostly Kosi and Tabu from Kosi and Kosi. And me having the joy of reviewing what comes next for our customers and consumers. And it's a really spectacular range that will be available to African Bank customers only. You will need to be an African Bank customer to be able to access it. But it is truly brilliant, fabulous fashion that will make you maybe forget about wanting this collection. I don't think so. You'll still want this. Maybe you'll just want to work at African Bank instead. You'll want to come and work at African Bank for it. But what comes for customers and consumers is quite spectacular, and we're very excited that in a very short time we will come to market with that offering.
I'm very excited. And speaking of fashion in this collection, what's your personal style? What do you wear that makes you feel good outside of what we're wearing now that makes you feel powerful and the likes?
So for anyone who actually knows me, they think it's quite hilarious that I'm working with fashion. I was very plain and ordinary, just basic, elegant clothing. I love a stiletto heel. You know,
like you're wearing.
I'm short, so it did give me a level of confidence, and then people would take you a little more seriously. I liked lots of pattern, right? But nothing opened my eyes as much about truly embracing my power and personal style until I started working with Nkosi and Nkosi.
Yeah.
That it really unlocked something evocative within you. The power of fashion is one that can never be underestimated, and perhaps one I didn't unlock yet.
Yeah.
So I think for women in particular out there, but even men who are still trying to unlock that power, putting on the right pair of shoes and the right outfit, especially if it is as beautiful and well made as this, will help you evolve your style, will make you feel powerful and courageous and audacious to take that next step.
Yeah, that's exactly why we say that clothing and fashion statements are a big part of unlocking, owning your true power and potential. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. On a much lighter note, if you're a plate of food and you were to serve yourself to a large crowd of people, what would you have on that plate and why?
Guys, it will have to be my favorite food in the whole world is curry. I have a deep and abiding love for spice and chili. Partially because I have a very poor sense of taste because I have a blocked nose all the time. And it's funny, that brings me joy and lifts my spirit if I eat a lot of spice. And partially because my mom was born in Durban. So we grew up eating a lot of curry, right?
Yeah.
She was a phenomenal cook. And she passed in 2020. And there's, for me, nothing as comforting as eating a curry. It's like getting a hug from my mom.
From your mom. Oh, that's so beautiful.
So even though that's gentle and sweet, I'm actually quite spicy.
Yeah.
So curry for me is a great way of reflecting that back. If I were to describe myself as a plate of food, it will definitely, and it would have to be chicken curry. Eh?
Oh, beautiful. I like that you're tying that dish down to the memory of your mom, and I think that's just beautiful. And if you were a cocktail or a drink of choice, what would you be?
You know, I'm a G&T girl, really. But I don't like ornery G&T. I like flavored. So it depends on my mood. Sometimes it's spicy, sometimes it's sweet.
You like the spice even in your drinks?
Spice.
Oh
chili.
my God.
Chili is my thing. I love it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Eloise, this was a very beautiful conversation that I just had with you, and it really opened my mind of all the opportunities that are going to come to in the future. And if I was a young, I don't know, South African, I would be positioning myself to be able to partner and work with brands like yourself, because the future is really bright for you guys. So thank you so much for engaging me on these conversations. And it was lovely having you in studio today.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Eloise Buzak, the head of marketing for personal banking at African Bank. From me, Soharan Lesila Nwanyana Oratagi Mudimulu Mangeloi, we'll see you on another episode. Bye.